The identity you walk around with every day, your name, your roles, your personality, your history, your successes, your failures, the way you see yourself, feels like you. But what if it isn't? What if the person you've spent your entire life trying to become is actually a construction? Not fake, not meaningless, but constructed. Because long before you ever had the ability to decide who you wanted to be, the world was already giving you information about who you were supposed to be. Your family had expectations. Your teachers had opinions. Your friends reflected things back to you. Your culture gave you rules. Your experiences taught you what was safe and what wasn't. Your relationships taught you what you could expect from other people. And somewhere along the way, you started putting all of this information together and calling it me. I'm the quiet one. I'm the strong one. I'm the difficult one. I'm the responsible one. I'm the successful one. I'm the one who always takes care of everybody else. I'm the one who gets abandoned. I'm the one nobody understands. I'm the one who never gets a break. I'm the one who has to do everything myself. And eventually, those descriptions stop feeling like things you experienced. They become who you believe you are. That's the identity. And here's where it gets interesting. You can change your circumstances without changing the identity underneath them. You can change your job, move to another city, leave a relationship, start a business, change your appearance, become more successful, become more spiritual, read all the books, do all the healing, and still carry the same identity underneath it all. Because identity isn't simply what you say about yourself. Identity is the internal structure you continue to live from. It's the assumptions you make about yourself before you even realized you're making them. It's what you expect, what you tolerate, what you believe you deserve, and what you think is possible for you. And even what you believe you have to be in order to be loved. This is why sometimes you can change your life and somehow end up recreating the same patterns in a completely different environment. Different person, same relationship dynamic. Different job, same feeling of being unappreciated. Different cities, same loneliness, different circumstances, same internal story. And you start asking, why does this keep happening to me? But maybe the more important question is, what identity am I continuing to live from? Because your identity doesn't just describe your reality, it participates in creating it. And this is one of the central ideas of the return. You are not here simply to create a better version of the identity you were handed. You are here to become conscious of the identity itself, to see it, to question it, to understand where it came from, and eventually to discover what remains when you stop confusing the construction with the one who is aware of it. Think about it. You have had many identities throughout your life. You were a child, then a teenager, then perhaps a student, a partner, a parent, an employee, a business owner, a caregiver, a friend, a person who succeeded, a person who failed, a person who was hurt, a person who recovered, a person who started over. Each version of you felt real at the time, but none of them remained exactly the same. Your body changed, your beliefs changed, your priorities changed, your relationships changed, your understanding changed. Even your personality may have changed, and yet there has always been something here that has experienced all of it. Something that was present when you were 5, present when you were 20, present when you experienced the greatest loss of your life, present when you experienced your greatest joy, and present today. The story changes. The observer of the story remains. And that distinction matters because most people spend their lives trying to improve the character without ever questioning the fact that they have mistaken the character for themselves. They say, I need to become more confident. I need to become more successful. I need to become more spiritual. I need to become more disciplined. I need to become better. And sometimes those things are useful, but there is another question underneath all of them. Who is the I that is trying so hard to become better? Because if you don't examine that, you can spend your entire life upgrading a persona. You can create a very impressive version of yourself and still feel disconnected from yourself. You can become everything you thought you were supposed to become and still wonder, why doesn't this feel like me? that question is important because sometimes the problem isn't that you haven't found yourself. It's that you've spent too much time maintaining an identity that was never entirely yours to begin with. And this is where the mirror becomes important, because once you start looking honestly at yourself, you begin to see the construction. You notice the patterns. You notice how quickly you defend certain parts of yourself. You notice the things that trigger you. You notice the situations where you automatically become small. You notice when you need approval. You notice when you need control. And you notice when you become the rescuer. You notice when you shut down. You notice when you become angry. And you notice when you run. You notice when you stay somewhere long after you know you should have left. And instead of immediately trying to fix all of it, you begin asking, what is this showing me about the identity I'm living from? And that's a very different question, because now you're not simply reacting to your life, you're observing yourself inside your life. And that observation creates space. The moment you can say, I notice that I always need people to approve of me, you are no longer completely inside the need for approval. There's a part of you that can see it. That moment you can say, I notice that I become defensive whenever someone questions me. You are no longer simply being defensive. You are aware of the patterns, and that awareness matters because you cannot consciously change what you cannot see. This is why awakening isn't necessarily about becoming someone new. It can actually be about seeing through the person you thought you had to be. And that can be uncomfortable because some of these identities have protected you. Okay. Maybe being independent kept you from having to rely on people who disappointed you. Maybe being strong helped you survive something that you didn't know how to process. And maybe being agreeable kept conflict away. Maybe being successful gave you a sense of worth. Maybe being needed gave you a reason to feel valuable. Maybe being the person who always had it together kept anyone from seeing how much you were struggling. These identities didn't necessarily appear because something was wrong with you. They often developed because they worked. They helped you navigate your environment, right? They helped you survive. They helped you belong. They helped you make sense of what was happening around you. So this isn't about hating the identity. It's about understanding it. There is a difference. You don't need to destroy every version of yourself. You need to stop believing that every version of yourself is the whole truth. Your personality is useful. Your name is useful. Your roles are useful. Your history matters. But they are not the entirety of you. You are the one experiencing them. And that is where the return begins to become different from self-improvement. Self-improvement asks, how can I become a better version of myself? The return asks, who am I beneath the version of myself I have been maintaining? That's a much deeper question because the answer isn't another label. It isn't, I'm spiritual. It isn't, I'm awakened, I'm a healer, I'm a creator. Be careful with that too, because you can leave one identity behind and immediately build another one that looks more spiritual but is still an identity. You can become attached to being the awakened person, the conscious person, the person who sees what everyone else doesn't see. And now you've simply created another costume, another role, right? A more sophisticated one, but still a costume. The return isn't asking you to replace one persona with another. It is asking you to become aware of the entire process, and it is asking you to remember who you are. To recognize that there is something beneath the labels, something quieter, something that doesn't need to prove itself, something that doesn't need an audience, something that doesn't need to be impressive, something that doesn't need to explain itself. Just awareness, presence, the simple fact that you are here experiencing this moment. And before the story about yourself begins, you are here. Before you decide whether you're successful or unsuccessful, you are here. Before someone tells you that you're beautiful or unattractive, intelligent or stupid, worthy or unworthy, you are here. Before you achieve anything, you are here. And after the achievement disappears, you are still here. That's the part worth returning to. Not because your personality doesn't matter, but because you don't have to spend the rest of your life defending it. You don't have to keep proving that you're the person you've decided you are. You can allow yourself to change. You can outgrow old roles. You can disappoint people who benefited from the old version of you. You can change your mind. You can become quieter. You can become stronger. You can become softer. You can say no. You can say yes. You can stop complaining and you can begin again. And none of those changes mean you've lost yourself. Maybe they mean you're finally giving yourself permission to stop performing yourself. That's the difference. Because identity says, this is who I am. Awareness says, this is what I'm experiencing right now. The identity says, I'm an anxious person. Awareness says, anxiety is here. The identity says, I'm a failure. Awareness says, I'm experiencing disappointment. The identity says, nobody respects me. Awareness says, I'm noticing a pattern in how I am being treated and how I am responding. Do you see the difference? One closes the door, the other one opens it. And this is where your power begins to return. Not because you suddenly control everything around you. You don't. Other people are going to make their choices. Life is going to happen. Things will change. People will leave. Plans will fail. Unexpected things will happen. But when you stop confusing yourself with the identity you've constructed, you gain something incredibly important. Choice. You can choose how you respond. You can question the story. You can interrupt the pattern, and you can decide that an old role no longer belongs in your future. You can stop living according to an identity that was created to survive a reality you no longer live in. And maybe that's what returning to yourself actually means. It doesn't mean going backward. It doesn't mean finding the person you were before life changed you. It means going underneath everything life taught you to become, underneath the expectations, underneath the fear, the roles, the wounds, underneath the achievements, underneath the need to be seen a certain way, underneath even the spiritual identity you've created, and asking, who am I when I don't need to be anything for anyone? And sit with that question and don't rush to answer it, because your mind will immediately want to give you a definition, right? We live in a society that's based on labels, another identity, another answer. But maybe for once you don't need an answer. Maybe you just need to notice what is here when you stop trying to define yourself. That quiet awareness, that presence, that part of you that has been here through every version of your life. That is what the return is pointing toward. Not becoming someone else, not creating a more impressive identity, not escaping the life you're living, but remembering the difference between the person you learned to be and the awareness that has been here, experiencing all of it. Your identity is a construction. It has served a purpose. Honor it, understand it, learn from it, but don't worship it. You are not required to remain the person your past created, and you are not required to become the person someone else expects you to be. You can return, not to who you were, but to who has always been underneath who you thought you had to become. You can return to yourself. And from that place, you can begin choosing what you become next. That is where your real authorship begins, because you can consciously author your life while unconsciously defending an identity you never stopped to question. The return begins when you do. If this made you stop and question the identity you've been carrying, don't rush past the feeling. Sit with it and ask yourself, who would I be if I stopped trying to be who I've learned to be? And if you're ready to explore the question more deeply, stay with me. This is a return, and we're only beginning.